Unlike other so-called community solar projects that are owned by investors, Maine Community Power is a consumer-owned cooperative. And as you know, we at Our Power love anything consumer-owned. Maine Community Power develops, owns, and operates small-scale community solar projects on behalf of its members. It's a creative and smart business model, light on the land. So we are all thrilled to welcome Tyler today. And Tyler, the floor is yours to tell us about Maine Community Power and how you're putting the community back in community solar.
Great. Thanks, Seth. Thanks, Our Power, for the invitation to meet with you all today. I'm the CEO of Maine Community Power Cooperative. Very excited to be here on this sunny Friday morning, still early afternoon, and share what we're up to. I'll just pop up my PowerPoint here.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, so Seth mentioned we are a consumer-owned cooperative, but I want to take a step back and tell you something off the bat here, which is some information you already know, right? So energy in Maine is far too expensive, and the main reason for that is because it's not ours, right? We don't own the energy infrastructure, both generation and delivery. We don't make our own energy ourselves. There is, of course, energy produced in Maine, but it is not owned by Mainers, and the infrastructure is not owned by Mainers. The owners of our energy infrastructure are typically multinational corporations, private equity firms, and foreign governments. And then on top of that, the key cost drivers of the price of energy in Maine, they're structural. They are things like global commodity prices, deferred maintenance on our grid over many decades, climate change causing large storms that require expensive repairs, et cetera, et cetera. And on top of that, the type of energy that we use, fossil fuels to heat our homes and fuel our cars, et cetera, are not produced in Maine. And so each year, we export several $billions of our own money out of the state that could instead be used to support our local economies and grow locally. At the same time, the trend is very much in our favor. So the green energy transition is well underway. It goes beyond any particular year or presidential term or even decade at this point. The reality is that renewable energy is just cheaper than every other form of energy. And that's why you're seeing record low power purchase agreements, not just in sunny parts of the world, but everywhere. In Scandinavia, they're buying power from solar panels because it's cheaper than a lot of the other options. And so the real opportunity here has come in recent years as the cost of this generation has plummeted, the cost of solar panels and corresponding equipment has dropped, but also key policies have changed that have unlocked the potential for new business models and project types. In the last presidential administration, we saw the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the CHIPS Act, and several other pieces of legislation that allowed small-scale renewable energy projects to become financially viable through things like tax credit transferability. So you can just sell your tax credits. You don't need to bring in a third-party investor to cover that. We have seen bonus tax credits for projects that support income or economic benefits specifically for low-income households, projects that are located in disadvantaged communities, and projects that are cooperatively owned. So there's a lot of exciting new business models that are just starting to blossom. At the same time, energy is not a natural market. It is entirely a construct of politics, of policies that get enacted and changed and that evolve over time. It is very much a political process at every step of the way. And so for me, this project really started a couple of years ago when in the Maine legislature in 2023, there was a big fight over net energy billing. And net energy billing, I think almost everybody would say, is an imperfect policy, but it is very effective to support the the installation of distributed renewables, whether it's at a home scale or a community scale, rooftop, what have you. And what really stuck out to me during that debate was how almost none of the debate was actually about net energy billing. It was a proxy battle for pro-solar versus anti-solar, corporate interests versus local interests. And there was a big gap in that discussion about who was actually representing the ratepayer here. And there are a lot of stakeholders in Maine politics that claim to speak for the ratepayers. People are happy to take that torch and carry it forward. But are they really? And to what extent are they looking out for the future of Maine ratepayers to build an energy economy that actually serves us over the long run and not just in the short run? And so I think if I leave you with one piece here, it's that Maine Community Power Cooperative seeks over the long run to represent the interests of ratepayers, particularly those who come from low-income households. So what are we doing right now? We are in the business of developing, owning, and operating small-scale community solar projects. And I'll go into specifically what this means. But a good way to think about us is a part energy company and part social movement. And the reason for that is that we are building energy infrastructure because this is a mechanism that allows us to lower the energy burden of our members. And by being consumer owned, by being a cooperative, we're able to build a social movement that is comprised of Mainers throughout the state who are interested in building a clean energy future that also lowers their costs and builds a more resilient grid. So we're focused on equitable access, we're focused on lowering energy expenses, and we do that with solar power that is community-based. So 3 points here on how we're different from the other community solar providers out there. One, of course, is the ownership structure. So we are owned by our members. We don't have third-party investors who are calling the shots about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. We are developing a very straightforward customer experience. The energy system is complicated. There's a fact out there that says something like the average homeowner pays attention to their electricity bill for about 9 seconds per month. And I think that 9 seconds is usually terror, fear, and confusion about how all this works. And so we are not looking to make people into energy nerds, but we are looking to provide a straightforward experience so that when people see how much energy they're using, they see how much they're paying, and it makes sense. They can go back to their lives. And then lastly, we're exclusively focused on small projects, and there's a very strategic reason for that. So on cooperative ownership, we are a for-profit company, but we're structured as just a C Corp, a normal C Corp, but we operate at cost. And so what that means is that we run our company, and at the end of the year, there are profits left over. They are either reinvested into our capital plan or they're returned to the members in the form of dividends. Any residential or small business customer of Central Maine Power is eligible to become a member. You don't leave Central Maine Power their grid. Everybody stays connected. You're just getting your energy credits through us instead. We welcome all of these residential and small business members, but we do have a priority for low to moderate income households and those who otherwise cannot install their own energy generation. So most of us actually can't install solar on our own homes. Maybe we have shading. Maybe we can't afford the upfront capital expense. Maybe we're renters. There are a lot of reasons, but this is, we're prioritizing those who otherwise don't already have their own solar. The way that it works is to become a member. You sign up online. It's a very quick form. You pay $100 to buy a membership share. That's one share for your household or your business. You keep that share as long as you are a member of the cooperative. And if you decide to leave, move, what have you, you can return that share to the cooperative and you get your money back. This is not a member investment-based model. So we're not asking members to fund the construction of our projects. There is no recurring membership fee. All you do is you buy your membership share, and then you are entitled to purchase services from the cooperative. We're democratically governed, and so we have an elected board of directors that is elected at the annual meeting by the membership. And then we have a professional staff, a team who runs the business on a day-to-day basis. We are here because of a lot of work that's taken place over a long period of time from the Center for an Ecology-Based Economy, this local community nonprofit based in Norway, Maine, who got a lot of support over the years to build out this business model from the Cooperative Development Institute. Last year, we were also very fortunate to win an award from the U.S. Department of Energy for $5 million to get our model up and running. This is very helpful to allow us to focus on the business model. It will pay essentially for our first 6 projects. And then we also received almost $100,000 from the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development to accelerate our community outreach efforts. So we have been funded to date through state and federal grants, although I want to be clear that this business model does not require grant funding. It is a model that stands on its own 2 feet. But in this case, we were able to get funding from the Department of Energy so that we didn't have to raise initial startup funding elsewhere. As many of you already know, I'm sure, if you're involved in any way as a subscriber or just peripherally to community solar, the way that it has been rolled out in Maine, function of the program structure, how the billing works, rates, et cetera, it's been an unmitigated disaster as far as the customer experience goes. There are too many reasons to go into here for what doesn't need to be the case or why things are so complicated. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of people in Maine who have signed up for community solar and are receiving these benefits, but it is not straightforward and it is not an easy thing to figure out. So what we wanted to do is make this process simple. We wanted to be clear that people were going to save money every month, and it would be very clear what their savings were. And so we have a model that gives you a discount on your entire bill, not just the rate. So if your bill is $100, you would pay $100 minus whatever your discount is, and that would be your charge each month. There wouldn't be a discount on only part of your bill and not another part of your bill. Another piece of this is that you'll pay only for what you use. And the reason for that is that right now people have to sign up and they basically bank their credits in the spring and summer and use them in the winter time. And that causes huge seasonal variations in what your electricity bill is, far greater than what your actual consumption differential is. And so in our model, there are no banked credits and no prepayments. You only pay for what you use each month. And then lastly, for the biggest piece here is that with us, you only pay one bill. And so you don't have to manage both your CMP bill and a community solar bill. Essentially, you pay us and we'll pay CMP on your behalf. So it dramatically simplifies the billing side of things as well. On the softer side, so these are energy projects that are local, built by Mainers, operated by Mainers, et cetera. So you're keeping your energy dollars in the local community. Because it's a cooperative, you're building equity in yourself and in the business by participating in this model. And then we also don't sell the renewable energy credits. And so you can actually say that you're using renewable energy when you're a member of Maine Community Power. Our discount tiers are based on eligibility. And so the standard residential offer is 15% discount on your whole bill. And this is assuming that you're kind of like 90% of CMP residential customers, you're on rate A and you use the standard offer. For those who meet income eligibility criteria, of which there are many ways to qualify, but the broadest lens would be if your household earns less than 80% of area median income, you will be eligible for a 20% discount instead of 15%. And then if you're a business, you will get a 10% discount on your bill. We also have the option for people to opt in on a solidarity basis to take a 10% discount instead of a 15% discount. And this basically helps us free up funds to support the expansion of our income eligible class. On the project side, community scale energy is really important. And it's especially important in Maine right now because we have a fragile rural grid that is very constrained. And so while we have deployed a lot of renewable energy in the last few years, we're kind of at the threshold now where new projects require large, expensive upgrades that often make projects not financially feasible. Developing large projects, whether it's a utility scale solar farm or offshore wind or anything like that, is extremely time consuming, expensive, and uncertain. Policies can change at any time. Over the last couple of months, we've seen Maine's offshore wind industry face significant pressures. And so it's never a sure thing. And then lastly, public opposition to large infrastructure projects is established and growing. We see this with opposition to transmission lines, to utility scale infrastructure. It is often seen as work that is being done to a community instead of involving them. And so we shouldn't be surprised that public opposition often kills projects, big projects. On the flip side, I mentioned earlier that most households cannot install their own on-site renewable generation for various reasons. Small-scale projects are also a net benefit to all ratepayers. That has been shown to be the case from the Maine Public Utilities Commission report from late last year, showing that residential solar in particular is a 2-to-1 net benefit to all ratepayers. This is reducing load on the grid, reducing strain on our old wires, depressing wholesale market prices, et cetera. So not only the people who are using that energy are benefiting, but all people who rely on the grid are benefiting. And then most importantly, projects that are small can be deployed very quickly, and they don't need grid upgrades. So that leads us to what we're doing. We have a standard project size that is a 1-acre footprint. It uses 20 of these dual axis trackers. And the reason we use these trackers is because on the one hand, they generate about 40% more electricity than a standard solar project. They're also elevated, and so you can still use the ground underneath them for agricultural purposes. Each of these projects generates enough power to offset the energy needs of about 50 Maine households, and we can put them anywhere on the grid. And in today's grid-constrained environment, this is really an important factor. So I want to show you a couple snapshots here. This map is of CMP's 3-phase infrastructure. You don't need to know anything about 3-phase, except that we don't have a lot of it, and it's what bigger solar projects need to connect to the grid. They need big, hefty wires. And so you can see that the bulk of this infrastructure is located around our urban centers, and urban centers are typically not where you're building large energy projects. If we zoom in on a particular area, I just grabbed this spot. This is southeast of Augusta. So we've got Hollowell to Gardner looking east. You might not be able to tell from this picture, but there are hundreds and hundreds of fields on this map. Lots of acreage that could be used to host solar installations, probably of many sizes, but the grid infrastructure prohibits that because you can't extend these 3-phase wires out to these sites. It costs about $1 million a mile to extend these lines. So these sites are off limits for large projects. But if you look at CMP's full grid, the blue lines are single phase. So these are the smaller wires that are typically bringing power to your house. So basically, wherever there's a road and any buildings that are using energy, you're going to have these single phase wires. This is what we use. So we plug into any of these locations, and you can see that now we can access basically every land parcel in the state that has an acre or two to use for one of these cooperatively owned projects. And then to zoom back out, so on the right is the 3-phase. That would be where you would be limited for bigger projects. On the left, the single phase, that's where we can go essentially everywhere. So that's your crash course on the Maine grid for the day. Um, I'll stop there and just leave this up here. There are a lot of ways to get involved. You can, of course, become a member. We would love to have you join us. Some people are interested in gifting memberships for to offset the burden for low-income households. We're just about to launch a community partnership program where local community-based organizations can sign up with us for training. We'll explain how Maine Community Power works, and these organizations will get a referral fee for local households that sign up and say that they heard about us through them. We're always looking for good sites. So if you or any of your friends have a field that you would be interested in leasing 2 acres for us to us for a project, we'd love to chat. And then, of course, follow us on the website and social media. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Seth, and we'll have some discussion.
Tyler, thank you so much. Fantastic presentation. And if you want to take down your screen, and we can just talk. And I see there are a few questions already posed, really more coming in, and please keep them coming. I know folks have questions, and this great presentation will have stoked a lot of curiosity, I'm sure. First question actually was about how professional staff get paid. I mean, it's a cooperative, obviously, but you're not a volunteer doing all this work, are you? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So we are not paid from membership fees. We are paid from the operation of the projects. Essentially, there are profits left over. It costs us less to generate the energy and sell it to our members than it costs to in the capital expense to build the projects. So there are profits left over that go to our operating budget. But our business model is actually one where each time we develop a new project, we can essentially pay ourselves a fee. And so through those development fees, we cover our overhead.
Cool. All right. And a couple of questions about storage. People are interested in whether you currently or maybe in the future are planning to pair solar with storage.
Yeah. So we would love to be doing storage today. We would love to be building them into our current standard projects. The challenge is that there isn't really a way to monetize the value that storage provides to the grid under current Maine policy. There's a program that really incentivizes very large battery projects. And so where we're focused on kind of the outskirts of the grid, there isn't really a way to capture that value. So it adds a lot of cost to the project, and it doesn't allow you to recoup that cost. So our approach right now is to build these projects without storage, but we will add storage to them in the event that a couple of years down the line, the policies change and there's a good way to do that. That's on the project side. Another offering that we expect to roll out in time is a home energy storage program, where if somebody wanted to have a battery installed at their house, they could just enroll in that with that through the cooperative. We would pay for the battery, we would maintain the battery, and the resident would just get the benefit of having energy backup and could pay for that service through their bill to Maine Community Power. So you would essentially be able to get a battery at your house for less than the cost of just buying your energy directly through CMP anyway.
Fantastic. Wow. So some other, definitely some technical questions here. I hope people don't feel intimidated by some of these. And, if you have just really basic questions, because I know there's a lot of technical information here, this is really your opportunity to just understand it. If you're thinking about maybe signing up, I know I signed up to be a Maine Community Power member, and I'm super excited about that. But one question more on the more technical side is, can you talk about AC kilowatts? How many AC kilowatts would a standard 1 acre project produce at full capacity? And maybe if you want to talk a little bit about the land use implications of that while you're at it, that would be cool.
Yeah. So our approach was that we wanted to be able to build these projects everywhere on the grid. We want to find the locations where there's existing capacity to handle these projects, and we want to we want to identify each of those spots. So we actually have a team of software developers who are building that map as we speak. And the short answer is there are many thousands of locations where you can plug these systems into the grid. So, so then what, right? We basically designed a system that allows us to make the biggest system that we can plug into the grid without causing problems. And that is how we got to this standard project size. It's 200 kilowatts DC, 150 kilowatts AC, and it generates enough kilowatt hours to offset 50 average Maine households. So if in some cases it will be more than that because maybe the accounts that are connected with that project are apartments or people are very frugal. And in other cases, maybe it's a bunch of houses that are all electric and have EVs and use a lot of electricity. And so it would be fewer households than that. But that's the general idea. The project sites themselves are actually 2 acres. And so one of those acres is used for the project footprint, and the other acre is used essentially for a shade easement so that we don't get shading from the trees nearby. And so then each project has 2 acres that we can grow food on, graze animals on, conserve as pollinator habitat, what have you. But each of these projects is generating energy for 50 or so households and is a 2-acre agricultural site.
Wow. So, and so because these are trackers, they take up a lot less of the land itself, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So all the wires are underground, and so the actual land impact for a project is just 20 posts that go in the ground. They're about 14 inches wide, so almost no actual land impact.
Wow, this is great. So, question about the discounts. Actually, there were a couple. One person asked about how you manage the physical reality of more energy being produced in some months than others. You talked about that a little bit, but maybe how can you make that work? I guess is the question. And maybe you could also talk about is that 15%? It's pretty similar to what other community solar farms are. Well, actually, we'll get to that in a minute. I don't want to overwhelm you with questions. So
Yeah.
talk about
So
that physical reality first. Yeah.
the I
How
got
do you
the
manage that banking of
Yeah. So in the rulemaking
mhm,
for net energy billing, there are basically 2 ways to allocate credits to accounts.
mhm,
Everybody, almost everybody, 99% of participants in net energy billing use what's called percentage allocation. And so in that case, the project owner sends CMP a list of all the accounts that they want to assign the credits to for that project, and they just say what percent to assign to each, and it adds up to 100, and that's what they do. And so a community solar company is going to look at your bill over the course of the year and say, okay, you need a total of X kilowatt hours, and that corresponds with Y percentage of production from our solar farm, and so that's what we're going to give you. So over the course of the year, the credits will all add up, but they'll be generated in the spring and summer and early fall, and then you often use them in the wintertime, particularly if you have a heat pump. So, so that means that the burden is on you, the customer, because you're getting these banked credits, and you better hope that it's the right number of banked credits, or you might run out, or you might have been assigned too many, and they might expire if you're able to use them over 12 months after they were generated. So it's basically a model that puts the risk on the customer to kind of manage that. We use what's called the cascading allocation, where we basically give CMP a list of accounts. They fill up the need of each person on that account. They start at the top, give them as many credits as they needed that month, go to the next person, so on and so forth, all the way down the list. And so in this case, the risk of managing the right number of accounts on a project is with the cooperative. We take that risk on. And so we manage that with our software system on the back end. So customers don't have to use any, worry about buying any credits that they're not going to use, because they're never given any more credits than they actually need in a given month.
cool. Wow. Um, A question, I guess I'll go to the next. There was also a land use kind of related to land use, since we mentioned that you just have a number of posts. It's not like these big fields where it's just blanketed with solar panels. Can you talk about the agricultural implications for the shade coverage a little bit?
Yeah. So one of the really exciting things about the dual axis trackers is that they obviously move to follow the sun. And so they are not sitting stationary, but they're dynamic. And that means that the shade profile behind the panels is also dynamic. And so you're able to create a landscape in which you have partial shading throughout the day and over the course of the year that is much more suitable to agricultural production than if you were to just have a fixed tilt system that casts shadow behind it almost all the time. And so in this case, we have a much wider variety of options for what we can grow on a site, or what we could use the site for, because of that dynamism. And then also the fact that the trackers are elevated means that you can still, you could tilt the trackers up and drive a tractor underneath, for example. So you can just use the site for so much more than what would otherwise be the case.
Amazing. You touched on REX briefly, and you don't sell the renewable energy credits. Ed pointed out that this seems to be a very big selling point for you. I don't know how familiar people are. Most community solar farms do sell the renewable attributes. So, in effect, what you're getting is not renewable. Do you want to say anything more about that? I mean, it seems like it is a really big selling point for you guys.
Yeah. So we thought long and hard about what to do with the RECs, because on the one hand, the RECs are very valuable. That's why they're being sold. They're worth 2.5, 3 cents a kilowatt hour, which is
Mm-hmm.
Substantial. And so we thought it was more important to start with a business model that didn't require the RECs to be sold, and that then this discussion about what to do with them, if anything, will be up to the membership to decide. This is something that the membership will have influence over the policy in the future. But yeah, we wanted this to be an actual renewable based company, so that we're not selling that attribute. And the flip side, of course, is that is a significant amount of essentially lost revenue that doesn't exist for this business model, that does exist for investor-owned community solar. And so that plays into our project economics overall. But we felt is an important differentiator.
Cool. There's a question about resilience, and I'm going to change the question a little bit. I mean, I think resilience is a really big topic, and we will have some more power lunches related to microgrids and other distributed energy resources. There's a question about sort of state programs, but can you talk about the resilience implications of the work that you're doing a little bit?
Yeah,
And
I
by the way,
think
resilience, if you want to define that a little bit, you can.
yeah. So resilience can mean a lot of different things in a lot of different contexts. I think when we are thinking about resilience, we're typically thinking about strengthening the grid, and what impact does building energy generation infrastructure at the outskirts of the grid have compared to projects that are that are located either very close to substations or actually on transmission level infrastructure, which plays a much different role in the energy system. And then when you talk about the value of distributed energy resources for resilience purposes, it can get a little tricky, because the value of one project is essentially zero, right? The one project isn't going to be producing energy all the time. It's subject to the weather. It's a very small percentage of the energy that's needed in that particular region. But when you build out tens or hundreds or thousands of these projects, you're starting to layer on incremental value, in which you actually have a hugely material benefit to the grid, particularly because these are systems that are located at location, or these are located on parts of the grid that are most frequently subject to outages, that have the lowest performing scores as far as being able to operate within the correct voltage ranges and the frequencies and so on. And so there's a lot of value that is delivered by these systems, but it can't necessarily be attributed to each individual project, but it's kind of in the aggregate. And so I think when we look further down the line, when we have a lot of these projects that are operational, we can talk about like what specific value this portfolio is making. And then when you layer on the role of energy storage in that as well, you now have essentially dispatchable power at the grid edge, which is something that is incredibly valuable. So the resilience conversation, I think, evolves over time with speed and scale, but it's really important.
Cool. I'm going to do a couple of real short, I think, short answer questions. Can you talk about reliability of the dual tracks? I mean, you've got more moving parts. Is that an issue?
Yeah, so it does, moving parts break, and so you need to maintain them. But ultimately, we're not using anything. There's actually nothing about our business model that is new. We're not inventing anything. We're rearranging the building blocks in a way that is oriented to consumer benefit rather than investor profits. And so, in this case, we evaluated fixed tilt systems versus single axis trackers versus dual axis trackers. And even in Maine now, the vast majority of new projects all use single axis trackers. So if you see projects that use fixed, that are stationary, these were projects that were kind of developed in 2019, 2020, 2021, and then built a couple of years later. And then now all the new projects use single axis trackers. And so the moving piece is in that system as well. And so it's very much a commercialized technology and worth the extra maintenance. Same thing for the dual axis trackers. It's a bit of extra maintenance, it's a bit of extra risk, but the extra benefit that comes from producing so much more energy and also producing more energy more consistently over the course of the year. Because the trackers move, they're always pointed straight at the sun, and that means that they're producing a lot more energy in the wintertime than a fixed tilt or single axis tracker. It also means they shed snow a lot more, and so they're just generally much better at producing energy than the alternatives.
Well, that's a perfect segue to questions from Barry and Linda about surplus. I'll start with Linda's. Do you ever have too much? Is that a problem? Do you have to sort of dump electricity if the connection to CMP goes down, for example? And then I'll ask another from Barry as well. What happens if the connection to CMP goes down? It just doesn't produce, right?
Yeah, exactly. So these are basically all solar systems that don't have batteries are the same in that the inverters are the brains of the operation. They all have the same certifications, and one of those certifications is a setting that says if the grid goes down, the solar goes down, because you don't want to be back feeding power into a line where somebody might be working and electrocute them. So that's kind of a standard setting.
Great. And another surplus scenario, Barry has a net zero home and already generates more than he needs, even with an EV. Is wondering if his surplus can benefit Maine community power somehow.
Yeah, that's a great question. The short answer is not right now, but we are working on it, actually. We're working through a couple of different proposals to essentially be able to integrate third-party systems that we don't own into a marketplace of sorts, so that people can do exactly that. Feed excess credits back, and you have a marketplace of sorts to address them. But stay tuned.
Wow, that is creative. Well, speaking of your unique business model, Colin wants to know about the decision making. Do you have an elected governance board? Like, how are members involved in that?
Yeah, well, we would love to have as many members as possible because our first annual meeting is coming up on May 10th, 10 to 12 at our office in Norway, Maine, that we share with CB. So basically, anybody who is a member by 10 o'clock on May 10th will be eligible to participate in the meeting. It will be held in person and online, so you don't have to go to Norway if that's not convenient. And at that meeting, we'll conduct a couple pieces of key business, adopting updated bylaws, electing our new board of directors. So the board that's there right now, these were the founding members who helped us incorporate last March. So we've been official for about 13 months. And we'll be electing for nine or so new board members to carry the organization forward. And these members serve for 3-year terms. They'll be staggered in this first election, but basically, yeah, members elect the board, and the board manages me.
Fantastic. All right. A question from Bill Dunn. Can members own shares of a project by coming up with the money to build it and then receive credit for their share of the production to bank? Or that's not, it sounds like that's not currently what you do, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's
some projects do it, but not this one.
exactly. So right now we are very fortunate to have this Department of Energy program funding the capital expenditures for our first 6 projects. And so we'll have 6 projects on that don't require any third-party investment. We'll be able to sell the tax credits, and that will allow us to fund the next round of growth. But looking ahead, we're very interested in establishing a fund, essentially, that allows all of us to be the investors in projects in the future, to buy the tax credits, et cetera. Because right now, it's still corporations, banks, wealthy families who are the purchasers of these tax credits. And we would like to find a way to democratize not just the energy production side of things, but also the investment side of things. And so that's something that we're working on, and we'll let people know when we're ready with something that will be public, but it is something that's on our mind.
Great. Only available for CMP customers at the moment to become members, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we need to start somewhere. And while NEB as a policy is, applicable in both Versant and CMP territory, we decided to focus our attention on Western Maine for site identification, and CMP more generally for member recruitment. And then over time, as we get our legs underneath us, then we'll expand to Versant territory. For those who are Versant customers, I would very much suggest that you submit a form on our website, so pre-application, so that we can get a good sense of how many people from Versant territory are interested, and that will guide kind of how quickly that becomes a priority.
Cool. We have a question from Facebook. Bud, who's watching the Facebook live stream, is wondering, what happens if the member owners require more power than you are generating, and does that impact the members' costs?
It doesn't impact their costs, because they only pay us for what they actually have received. Mm-hmm. I'm hopeful that we will be able to develop many projects so that as our membership grows, there's no long wait time between when you sign up and when you start receiving these bill credits, and lower costs. As we get started, there will inevitably be a kind of a gap between the number of members we have and their energy need and the number of projects that are available for them. And so we're be building this wait list for people to queue up, so that as new projects come online, they get slotted into them. But we are also scaling up the development side of the business, so we can get more projects ready to go more quickly to avoid exactly that situation.
Nice. And Linda wanted to know how many projects you've deployed so far, and how's the pipeline coming? I'll add that.
We are developing our first portfolio right now. And so the first 2 sites are just finishing up with development and will be built as soon as the ground dries, essentially. They'll be located in Harrison. And the next 4 sites we hope to build this year will also be located in Western Maine. But by the end of the year, we're hoping to have a couple dozen sites under development so that by the time we get going for next year's construction season, we can have a nice backlog of projects to deploy.
Nice. Speaking of which, full disclosure, I have signed up a community family property for a possible site. Tyler's keeping me hanging though. They've got to focus on the Oxford Hills area for now, but eventually they may work their way down to Bodenham and other parts of the state. So we're waiting with bated breath and excited to be one of the locations. John in the chat is wondering about how rates change. It's just 15% of whatever the rate is. So if the supply rate or the delivery rate is fluctuating, it's just 15% of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of why we wanted to do the whole bill model, because each year, several times per year, rates change. Sometimes it's the supply portion of the bill, sometimes it's the delivery portion of the bill, sometimes it's the kilowatt hour portion of the bill, sometimes it's the fixed charge portion of the bill. And so we're not asking our members to build spreadsheets to keep track of all of this. We want to be able to send them a bill that says, here's what the CMP charge would have been, here's your 15% discount, and here's what you pay us, and let us worry about all the back end math. It sounds unreasonably simple. It just seems like it shouldn't be so hard for this to be something that is available in the marketplace. But actually, once you lift up the hood a little bit and see what is required in order to build a back end that allows you to give you an invoice that says that, it's quite remarkable. There's a lot of moving pieces. And so I think that's why a lot of other companies don't do it that way, because it's much more complicated, and why I think that our model will be warmly welcomed.
Yeah, nice. So James from Colorado is interested in how you got the data, like power quality, outage, the grid maps that you showed us. Are these things fully shared by the utility? He's wondering, how to go about finding them in Colorado. I don't know if you're familiar with the laws there, but how does it work in Maine?
Yeah, it's a good question. The short answer is it's kind of available. So this stuff is generally utility by utility. And in Maine, for example, Central Maine Power and Versant Power both have public hosting capacity maps that are available. The data is generally not accurate. The hosting capacity itself is not accurate. The location of the lines is not really accurate, but it gives you a little something to work with. But we then on top of that, you can buy software that give you access to this data. So we use a platform called PV Case that allows us to do some of that work. But ultimately, we actually just brought on a GIS PhD from the University of Maine to work with us and build our own map. So we tried to use some commercially available data and then just ended up doing it ourselves. So I wish I had a really good answer for Colorado. It's going to be utility dependent.
Got it. Makes sense. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of work behind the scenes to make it happen. I mean, I put in my $100 recently, and I'm really excited to be a member owner. I'm not in a particular rush, frankly. I'm willing to be patient, but there are a couple of questions Wayne and Linda wanted to know, sort of how long it takes, the $100 membership fee once you pay it, how long it takes to actually start to see some of those benefits.
Yeah, great questions. And that's been one of the big problems with the way that community solar has been rolled out in Maine to date, is that people get all these mailers day after day, week after week, promising these savings. They eventually sign up and then wait, in many cases, years to actually receive some bill credits. And so we're trying to avoid that in a couple of ways. One is by developing enough projects so that we are meeting the need of the growing membership base.
Mm-hmm.
And these small projects, because they use this alternate interconnection process, we can be more confident that the projects are going to be approved for interconnection, but also they require less permitting. They have lower failure rate. They can be built very quickly. Once you get ready to go, these projects can be built in less than a month. So it's very fast. And so we have shortened the development timeline so that we have much better clarity on when new projects will come online and when spaces will be available. So we can communicate with the membership about how many seats are available at any given time and the pace at which we'll add new capacity. Now, the when you enroll, you fill out the simple form and then you buy your membership share. At that point, you are a full member of the cooperative. And so the question of, when you get your rights and so on is as soon as you complete that onboarding process. And then when you get your electricity credits is going to be a function of kind of where you are in the line when you sign up and how many people are ahead of you.
Got it. Okay. So Scott, who I know is an insider with this program, had a great point that I just want to make sure people saw in the Q&A, which is, and we're talking about how CMP rates tend to fluctuate, usually in the upward direction. But because you're locking in sort of at a percentage basis, there could be additional revenue that's coming in that you don't necessarily need. So even though you're a nonprofit, we'll call it profits. So Scott points out that members can then vote to either increase the discount, receive a dividend, which is common in the cooperative structure, or reinvest those profits in future projects and growing it out. So I think that's a really important point that I just want to make sure that people saw that excellent assist from Scott. Great question from Andrew about a sample bill. Is it possible to see a sample bill? How would it look as compared to a CMP bill?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are going to be building out a resource library on our website that will address a lot of the common questions and have materials like that available for people to see. So it's not there today, but it will be shortly.
Excellent. And Wayne is interested in any idea of the sort of the number of months. I realize this is hard, and it's true of all community solar projects. But if somebody did sign up today, are we talking 6 years, 6 months? What's the sort of the general queue looking like at this point?
So right now we still have slots open for 2025 projects.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That's very clear. Excellent. We are getting near the end. I think we have time for one, maybe two more quick questions. I want to leave you time for a final thought, Tyler. Also, drawing people's attention to a survey that I put in the chat somewhere. It's on your screen. If you can answer those questions, great. I will actually post one other survey towards the end of this because we're really interested in people's feedback on this power lunch concept and your ideas for future power lunches. But an anonymous attendee wants to know if you need permits to connect to Central Maine Power, and talks about how they've been, they have a reputation for being slow to provide costs of interconnection. How's this not a problem for you?
Yeah, we follow a different interconnection process. And so the process for big projects is expensive, slow, uncertain, and we don't want to be a part of that. And so that has informed how we size our projects. So our projects follow what's called the level 2 interconnection procedure. And that basically means they look at the project and see, can we connect this project without requiring any major grid upgrades? And it's a yes, no, and it takes a couple of weeks to get that answer versus a much longer time. And so yes, we do need a permission from CMP in order to connect the project. We go through a process. It's pretty quick. And one of the conditions is that we don't cause any trouble for anybody else, essentially.
Got it. And real quick, this is the last question. Bill Dunn asks if you a new project or maybe a couple projects coming online. Do you just assign sort of whoever's in the queue so that you can manage the supply and demand, if you will?
Yeah, so we do have different prioritization criteria. The main one is that at least half of the energy from our systems needs to be going to low to moderate income households. And so basically we have different queues for different customer types, and we match them up with the projected generation from the project.
Excellent. Scott points out that folks who are interested in helping to develop the cooperative can nominate themselves or nominate someone you know for the board. Again, the election is May 10th, so check out the website. If someone could post the website in the chat, that would be great. Maybe Scott could do it. Tyler, this has been amazing. I'm even more excited about Maine Community Power now that I've heard all of these details. Again, to me, just some of the high points, and you talked about this, but it's light on the land with the trackers. It is truly consumer owned or community owned. The one bill concept is fantastic. I've participated in other community solar programs where, getting two bills it can be confusing for people. And it's truly clean. The point about not selling the RECs is a really big selling point. I agree with Ed on that. So I hope this spreads beyond CMP's territory. And it's, as far as we know, this is the only one going in the country. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what you are doing, I can say we now that I chipped in my $100, what we are doing is really exciting and cutting edge. Any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. This is the result of many people's work for a long time, and pivoting in a shifting policy environment. And so I don't think that the future will look like it does today, but that's an opportunity to evolve and continue to grow. And so while we're piloting this model in Maine, I really do hope that in the future there are opportunities to support groups in other states that would like to do something similar. And so people who join us now will be on the ground floor of what hopefully becomes a national movement.
Amazing. I did a quick poll and a whole lot of people came in just curious and now are saying they plan to sign up. So Tyler, I think you're going to have some new members here. And I want to also just post one last quick poll asking folks who have the time to stick around for a couple more minutes what your ideas are for our next power lunch, which will be May 2nd. And that's the first Friday. It's always the first Friday from 12 to 1. I have some exciting ideas for you. I think we may be looking at the whistleblower bill as our focus. We have a very exciting first in the nation whistleblower bill that Senator Mike Tipping is sponsoring, and I expect it will be heard either in May or June. So it might be very timely, but that is only one of the options here. And we're thinking of putting together a panel. So there are actually a few people chiming in on these ideas. Go ahead and answer if you have time. Whistleblower, microgrids, and other DERs. We had a question about resiliency. Tribal energy sovereignty. Our Power has been doing some work there. Utility profits and rate making and how they're determined is another. And if you want to post your own suggestion, please do. If you have to leave now, because it is a little past 1, we appreciate you joining us. This will be put together in a video for our website. So if you want to share it with your friends, you'll be able to do it. Please do sign up for our email list at ourpowermaine.org and check out mainecommunitypower.com where you can sign up to be a member. Tyler, again, very much appreciate you joining us. And I want to also say thanks to Our Power's amazing board. A number of them are here with us today, and the policy and business leaders who've joined us along the way. Tyler, you've been a fantastic guest number 2 for our 2025 series, and we hope you'll be back as well.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for joining.
Take care.